All right. Good afternoon, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday Talks, where we have the opportunity to dive a little bit deeper into various aspects of franchise ownership here at Right at Home. I'm your grateful host, Brady Schwab. I'm the Chief Growth and Strategic Operations Officer. And today we're going to get into franchise business performance coaching with my good friend, Jaime Esquivel. Jaime is one of our great business performance coaches here at Right at Home. Jaime, I'm going to let you introduce yourself to the audience here.
Awesome. Yeah. My name is Jaime Esquivel. Again, one of the business performance coaches here at Right at Home. My background stems in, food and beverage for a little over 13 years, where I ran up the ladder, training individuals across the United States, running small mom and pop shops up to large national chains, training managers and just again, traveling around the United States and sharing the experience I had. After those 13 years, when COVID happened, I decided it was time for a change of pace. The food and industry world for me, or the food and beverage industry world for me, just a lot of 24/7 madness, and I was ready for something a little different. But what I wanted to do in changing and transitioning into a new career was find a way to utilize the experiences I had gained over that time and share it with other folks. Because luckily for me, I wound up at a place in life where I have found myself, I think, a bit farther ahead than even I would have expected. And it's my goal to be able to do that for other individuals. And I managed to find a job coaching at another organization previous to Right at Home, a home contractor services franchise, and learned the world of how to work in franchises, how to, work with individuals who put their life savings, their dreams, all of it on the line to try and do something better. And it's kind of a little bit of a imposter syndrome, if you will, having these individuals do so much and be in that world for so long, or for me to step in and say, hey, here's some guidance. But I did learn that humility allows us to learn from above as from below. And so I had experiences to share. They had experience and knowledges to share with me. And I've continued on that track, now finding myself here at Right at Home doing the same thing, coaching individuals who have a dream on the line that are wanting to do something great for themselves and their community. And I get to be a little piece of that, where I get to help make some ripples, and hopefully those create waves and communities.
That's awesome. And as I like to say, even Michael Jordan had a coach, right? We're never above coaching, no matter where we are in our journey, whether it's business or otherwise. So now, a lot of our audience here today will be folks that are thinking about entering the world of franchise ownership with Right at Home. I'm curious from your perspective. What are some of the most common challenges that you help new owners navigate over their first 12 months or so?
Yeah, well, I think one of the most common ones is understanding that you run your business off the numbers, not off of your checking account. I think we kind of hop into business, one, not really understanding what we're getting into. I mean, there's a lot of work that goes involved, right? A lot of diligence. We have discovery days, and whether you're looking at us or in other industries in the franchise world, there's just a lot of information to take in, and all that's fine and dandy. You think you're prepped, but then when you get into the business world, if you don't take the time to truly understand your business from the numbers, and I'm talking not just financials, but the data points, and really understanding the information coming at you from the different systems and software, it can be tough to really make thoughtful decisions. When all you're doing is looking at your checking account and you see it go up and you see it go down, the level of stress that happens there that does not enable us to make really smart, intentional decisions, it can be an obstacle to get over for sure.
Yeah. What's one piece of advice you find yourself repeating pretty often to new owners?
I would just say get out there and do it. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I give to not only individuals who are new in the franchise world, but even individuals who I'm coaching that are 10, 15, 20 years into the business. I'll get questions like, what should I do? I don't have enough people in the office. How do I get out there? I am really thinking about doing this hire, but I've got some of this analysis paralysis. At the end of the day, just do it. And for this simple reason, right? If you make a decision and it's wrong, you will now know what direction to go. If you make a decision and it's right, you'll now know, hey, glad we did it. We're heading in the right direction. If you fail to make a decision at all, you do nothing. You know not where to go, not what direction you should have gone. You sit in the same place, complacent, stagnant, and there is no growth. So
Yep.
just make the decision and do it.
That's great. And I always like to say, if you're really sitting there spinning in your anxiety, it's the world telling you to take action. And I think that's very much in keeping what you're saying here. When you start working with a franchisee, so franchisee will come through the Right Star program and then kind of graduate to the business performance coach. How do you quickly assess where the most critical support is needed, the things that particular owner really needs support with first?
Well, that's kind of the beauty of being a part of a franchise, and especially one like ours, where we've got a robust support system already built in, right? You're going through Right Start onboarding with your onboarding coach, and there's information being shared along the way, right? You're with them for a period of time, anywhere from 2 to 6 months, as you kind of get your feet underneath of you and start moving the business forward. And then I, as a business coach, I'm actually in correspondence with your Right Start onboarding coach from right at the very beginning. Even though you may not see me right away, I'm starting to get information, starting to understand what direction the individual franchisee that I'm going to be working with is headed. I'm starting to learn some strengths and some weaknesses. I'm also starting to understand where the business might be behind schedule or ahead of schedule. And then I'll actually kind of start joining every so often as we get closer to the point of what we call graduation. So at that point, when you graduate over to your full business performance coach, I've not only got a good database of info on you and where you've been, but I've also kind of slowly been introducing myself so that the relationship can get off to a pretty good start, right?
Yeah,
Then from there, that first conversation, it's really just a download on both sides, right? We need to have a relationship that's built on trust, right? Because truth and grace need to come together, and that can't happen unless there's trust. So we'll get to know each other a little bit. And the other part of it is that, we're just transparent, we're honest. And so I will say what I see, and I would expect the same from the individual I'm working with to share with me so that I can make sure that I adapt to the style that's going to be best for you when it comes to coaching.
yeah. So that's a lot of kind of, you're watching these folks as they move into your world, and you're really calibrating around that particular owner and the journey that they're on. Um, how does an owner get the most value out of you? Like how would you coach an owner to use you as a coach?
It's kind of simple. It is just ask the questions, right? It gets hard sometimes, I think, for individuals who are starting a business because you've got 100 things coming at you at once every single day. And it changes from day one to day two to week three to month four, right? And there is a conduit available to you at all times. That's me. And I mean, there's tons of other support here, right? We have plenty of departments that offer support, but I make it very easy for you to just ask a question so that I can give you the right piece of information, or that I can plug and play the different SMEs, or what we call subject matter experts around here, into position, right? So it's the simplest way to go about it is just ask the question. There's no dumb questions. There's only good questions because there's only good data points. And when you bring something to the surface, it might help us smoke something else out that's really worth diving into. So just don't be afraid to use me as your coach.
That's great. So I was on an invite to Discovery Day call earlier this week and got a great question from the candidate, and I'm really curious how you might answer this. The question was, what do first time owners wish they knew before starting?
Oh, that's a good one.
I know it was great.
Um, so in the specificity of right at home and just the home care industry as a whole, because we get individuals from all over. We have folks who are C-suite execs making $500,000 a year and decided to say, I'm done with corporate America. I want to do something different. We have farmers who decided they're tired and they want to do a different industry. And we've got folks who are just, they want to dream and they're connected to home care, just in general. I would say the thing that I most commonly find a franchisee who's starting out that doesn't truly realize is that the people we serve, right? And I'm talking about me if I was a franchisee, isn't necessarily the client. Yes, we're out there servicing clients, we're taking care of them. That's how we bring our dollars in. But the people that we serve are the people that are helping us bring this business to the community. And so we need to be really aware of the fact that our people, our caregivers, are the most important part of this business. I think far too often we get hung up on, maybe having a veteran background and I'm out here to help veterans, or, my mom or my dad needed help. And so I want to be able to help the elderly and those who are aging in place. But really, we need to help the folks who are coming to our doors looking for a job, who are looking to maybe create a career for themselves, because those are the people who are representing our brand out in the market. And far too often we go over them, almost not even giving them the attention they need, and that's the lifeblood, right? We don't meet our caregivers where they're at. We don't truly understand just the world that the caregiver lives in and where they come from, and that's just such a key component. And when we really understand that that's the most important part of this, the rest of it comes easy. The dollars come, that's fine, but we need to take care of the people who are helping us take care of our communities.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And so this question's really around something I know you personally to be passionate about, and that's mindset. So if you could give every new owner one mindset, you can just implant it into them before they open their doors. What would that be?
One mindset. You know, I think the mindset that nobody told us it was impossible, so it's all possible, is the mindset that I live off of and the one that I share, right? Nobody told us that it is impossible to build a business, whether this or something else, and to create a change in our community and a change in ourselves, and a change so that the world is better tomorrow than it was today and today than it was the day before. And so, it's cliche, but the world is our oyster at that point, right? We have all ability to be able to enact change and be intentional about what we're putting out into the world. And so that's the mindset I live off of. That's the one that I'm constantly coaching from.
Oh, I love it. I knew you'd have something great to share around that. I'm curious if you have any stories of a franchisee or somebody that you were coaching, making a small change in their business that you really help them identify or execute that really kind of changed the trajectory of their business.
Yeah, I got a few, but one that's top of mind for me right now, because I've actually been using it a lot lately, is we have Brian Cook out of Lee Summit. He's about a year and a half in now. When I started working with him, one of the smallest levers we could pull, it was the lowest hanging fruit there, was that he absolutely hated social media. Like, that wasn't his world. He didn't post on Facebook. I don't even know if he had a Facebook, certainly wasn't on LinkedIn. And it was just a piece that was missing, because one of the ways that we can target our various pieces of the market, right, whether clients or caregivers, is through social media interaction, in this case, Facebook. So I said, here's the deal, my man. Just make one post. You can even use AI. I'll even show you how to use ChatGPT to create a little synopsis of you, but just introduce yourself to the community. And he's like, I'm not a big fan of it. I don't like it. And I just said, just be intentional about it. One time a week, just try it. Very first post, picture of his family, not even right at home related garb, anything. His two kids, him and his wife, posted in a community Facebook group. I think it was like 100 comments. I don't know how many likes. The phone started ringing. He got two clients off of just himself introducing Right at Home and Brian Cook to the Lee Summit area. And that was what it took for him to say, yeah, this makes sense. And so since then, he's been very consistent. He's grown that social media presence. He's been a lot more active. And I mean, it just bore fruit, right? So that one's top of mind.
Yeah, no, that's great. And talk about just getting started, just get out there. And that kind of leads me to this maybe the other end of the spectrum or adjacent to that. But where do you see owners, especially new owners, sometimes overcomplicate things, maybe in that first year?
Analysis by paralysis. I did mention earlier it's important to understand your business from the financials and the data point, and that's still 100% true, right? We need to understand a few different metrics, billable hours, revenue, things like that. And we need to understand what our P&L is telling us, gross margin, those pieces, they all make sense. But there is a certain depth of information that we just don't need to get into. A couple of franchisees come to mind right now where, I'm copied on some emails that they're sending out to their vendors because they got an individual $15 charge and they don't understand where that came from. And that's just one of maybe 5 or 6 emails going out where they're looking at these pieces of information that aren't moving the needle, right? Like, I understand we want to save our money. $15 spent is $15 lost. I get it. But the amount of time it took to research that, go and send the email, spend your day kind of worrying about that, looking for a response, so on and so forth. I could have made that Facebook post, or I could have walked out of the office, got out from behind the computer, and put my brand in front of people where it's going to make a difference and I could possibly bring in a client or build a relationship. You just can't spend so much time behind a desk. Like I said at the beginning, get out there, do it.
Mhm. So then this may build off of that, but in your mind, in your experience, the owners that continue to grow year after year, and versus the group that maybe struggle to get some momentum, what do you think separates the two? What are the habits or disciplines that you think the strongest owners tend to be build really early that continue to pay dividends year after year after year, even as the business changes or the industry changes? What
Yeah, I
what
mean,
would you say?
it goes back to that mindset and not losing the fact that you can continue to build so long as you want it, right? Like nobody's telling us we have to stop. I think when we become happy or complacent with where we're at, then we tend to lose that traction. And I think we know some individuals on this call might have owned businesses before. If your business isn't growing, it's dying. And as soon as we stop, as soon as we no longer make another step forward because we feel like, oh, this revenue amount is fine, this billable hour amount is fine, I'm living the life I want to, we're going to immediately lose traction. Or a better example would be the flywheel starts to slow down. And for those of you familiar with the flywheel concept, it takes a lot of kind of front-loaded effort to really get it spinning at a pace where inertia takes over and momentum's there and we constantly move. It takes a lot of time, a lot of effort to build that up. But once it does, we're going, right? We're flying, we're doing amazing. The moment we take our foot off the gas, it starts to slow down. And all that work you put in, it's not for nothing, but you've got to do a portion of it again. And that's where we see people slow down because you've built it once and I have a couple of franchisees in my portfolio like this. They built it once, they slowed it down, and then they start to question, do I want to build this again? Because that's what it becomes. It becomes a
Mhm.
rebuilding effort. Business is constantly moving forward. Momentum cannot be lost. Once you do, it's not square one, but it's square two, and that's pretty far back.
Yeah. So when you think about, and again, I think this is a good corollary, helping franchisees balance working in the business versus working on the business, and and,
Mhm.
and especially as you're thinking about starting a new franchise, and joining a franchise system with the reason of being part of a system to growing. How do you balance those two things? Because initially it is more of a balance than later. Yes.
Yeah, it certainly is. I think it becomes easier, obviously, as you become more accustomed to the processes and what goes on. So it certainly does become easier as you're tenured in the organization. But when you're first starting out, my goal is to help make your job easier, right? Your management, Nate, your leadership of your organization requires you to not only have individuals doing what you need them to do, but you've also got to find what steps need to be taken. And so that's where my perspective comes in. Keep in mind, me as a coach, I have, I believe, 42 franchisees in my portfolio. So excluding you, I have 41 different perspectives and timelines and experiences that I can share along with my own that can help you figure out what might need to happen next. My goal is to basically throw it all on the wall with you, help you compartmentalize what makes sense to approach now, what makes sense to approach later, and what makes sense to completely get off of your radar so that we can be laser focused on the steps that are going to move the needle for you. Right. And we do a little bit of that with Right Start as they get you going. And then when you come over to me, we get a little more data heavy and I can help you see the story of your business through that.
So thinking of maybe another aspect of this, how do you coach owners through the emotional side of business ownership? Like it's stressful, there's uncertainty. You talked about it, this is kind of burn the boats kind of moment. And there can be crisis of confidence and there's setbacks. What
Mhm.
what role do you play kind of more on that emotional side?
Well, there's a reason they call us coaches and not consultants, right? If I was a consultant, I'm just going to tell you what you need to do. You go off and do it, and maybe I hold a little bit of accountability. But when it comes to coaching, there is the emotional aspect to it. And I think what really, actually, I don't think, I know what really connects us as coaches to the franchisees that we work with is that we emotionally own that business with you, right? There's nothing tying me to your business financially by any means, right? I didn't make the investment. My job isn't on the line if you do well or do poorly. And so what really is the incentive? And the incentive, honestly, is that I want you to succeed and live the dream that you're wanting to live, right? You have a vision. It is my goal to help you get there. And that means that sometimes we have to have some difficult conversations. Tears are going to shed, right? Um, Tears of joy, tears of sadness, a little bit of tears of pain every once in a while. But we're here for that ride. And I would be remiss to say it doesn't have an emotional toll on us, but that's kind of the part of it, right? That's how you know that we're connected. It's not just me showing up here at the office to say, hey, I gotta, type some emails, I gotta send some data. I'm here to help you do what you want to do. And that means we're gonna talk it through. We're gonna cry it out, we're gonna hug it out. When I visit you in your office, we're gonna love it out. Like we're connected.
Yep. Yep. No, I love it. So switching from more of the emotional side to more of the maybe unemotional side. So you talked a
Mhm.
little bit about metrics. So what KPIs are you most focused on when you're coaching franchisees, and what are the metrics that you think are just the ones that um, are evergreen, that regardless of whether you're new or you've been in the system for 25 years, are the metrics that really are the health, the lifeblood, the pacing of the business.
Yeah, I would defer to the P&L, and I would say we're going to focus on top line revenue, top line billable hours, because those play a game with each other we can get into a little bit later. But those are going to give us gross margin, and gross margin is what tells us if the rest of the story is going to be possible or not. Did we make enough good decisions in how we bill and how we pay, and what revenue sources that we're choosing to offer, right? Revenue stream, excuse me, for us to be able to pay the bills so that we can pay ourselves, so that we can also reinvest in the business. So billable hours, revenue, we look at them on an average weekly basis to understand if there's trends going up or going down. And then we start getting into some of the heavier below the line stuff, administrative costs being one of the major ones, and all other operating costs. Now, some people would say the next important one would be net profit or net loss. I'm not a believer of that. I do believe that it can tell you a little bit about your business, but what we look at is what's called owner's discretionary profit. And what that is, it's a little calculation of the way I like to put it, are you living the life you want because you run the business the way you're trying to run the business? So owner's discretionary profit includes your compensation in any form or fashion, depending on how you've incorporated the business. It includes your net profit or loss, and it includes what we call add backs. Do you happen to have a company car? Do you happen to enjoy a golf sponsorship for right at home because you enjoy playing 18 every once in a while, right? That really tells us the health of are you getting what you want out of this business?
Mhm. Mhm. I love that, and as a part of the franchise system here at Right at Home, how do I know as an owner and you as a coach, how do I set goals? How do I know how I'm performing against the rest of the system? How do I play against the best?
Yeah. So kind of two parts to this, right? There is the part where we compare, and there's the part where we kind of create vision or vision cast. On the comparison side, we got plenty of data. We have benchmarks from Activated Insights across the entire home care industry. We have internal benchmarks that showcase how we're doing as a network, is what we call it, and then how we compare across the network. And even subdivided from there, we can take a look at state, at region, at size of business, at age of business, so we can get an understanding of where are you in the playing field amongst these other players in this game, right? So that's how we can create some goals in a simple version. But the other side is the vision casting side, and that's where some of the tools that we bring in as coaches really come into play. One is the strategic business plan. So the strategic business plan is built off a system called EOS, or the Entrepreneurial Operating System. It's not something that we mandate people use, but there's just certain capacities within its tools that we can use that help us start creating really strong goals. We start with a vision. What does this look like in 3 years? I don't want to know immediate goals. I want to know, does it look like Susie Q is working in the office 4 days a week? We have a district office. We have, 3 territories, just the picture. We break that down into a 1 year plan. So if we're going to hit this 3 year kind of picture, in 1 year, I do need to do these specific things, these annual objectives. And then from there, we take bite-sized chunks, right? We talk about revenue, we talk about hours. What does that look like each quarter? And from there, how do we calculate what we're going to do in the next quarter? And all of these tools, they're all encompassed within the strategic business plan that allows us to do that.
And that plan's updated, or how do you, this is a little bit of what's the coaching cadence that I can expect, and how do I work against the plan with my business performance coach?
Yeah, absolutely. So you'll get a kind of version of the strategic business plan with your Right Start coach. But again, they're really more procedural and step by step. Once you get to your actual performance coach, we will take a look at that and we'll build it out, meeting usually weekly at the beginning. So once you transition from Right Start onboarding to me, we're meeting weekly, probably for a period of 2, maybe 3 months. At that point, we're going to go bi-weekly for a little bit. And then it really depends on how quickly you acclimate to this business and keep moving, right? I've got some individuals who within 4 months, we're meeting monthly. I've got some individuals, I'm meeting with them biweekly, 6 to 8 months in, because I know that there's value in that meeting, right? So there's no time limit to what you get with me. The only time limit being my calendar, right? But I really believe that everybody progresses at their own pace, and we're here to help them do that, right? So eventually, I've got just a handful in my portfolio. We meet quarterly. Their business is fine. We have a really strong annual meeting at the end of the year to plan for the following. We have some quarterly goals. We'll meet quarterly to review those goals, see if any adjustments need to be made, and then we'll have as needed conversations, whether through text, phone call, or even just an individualized Zoom call between those cadences.
That's awesome. So we do have one question that came in from the studio audience here. So I'll read it to you. When an owner is starting out, what kind of coaching recommendations do you have when it comes to hiring those first office employees?
Um, you know, I think the first coaching recommendation I have is we need to build out what the plan is going to look like for hiring 12 months out. I know it sounds kind of counterintuitive, right? Because we're really trying to focus here, but if you don't know where you want to be, you're not going to understand what needs to come down the pipeline. That said, you need to start with your 2 full-time employees as part of the franchise agreement. So you as the owner, you're in it, you're one full-time employee. Then I want to have somebody who's going to handle my scheduling and my client care, because those are the 2 aspects of the business you need to care about. Again, we need to care about our people, the caregivers, and then we need to talk about our clients, those who we're serving. So we're going to work to have an individual who can come into that seat, get the schedule done, but also get out to the clients and ensure that they have a quality of care that we're looking for. And then from there, as we progress to 100, couple hundred hours, we're going to have the wherewithal and capacity to hire somebody specific to clients, somebody specific to caregivers. And then from there, we have a downline of, individual positions we may want to hire, but that's where we're going to start right at the beginning.
Yeah. So a couple things just to recap, and then I've got one more question for you on the way out. But you talked a lot about taking action. You talked about getting out there and doing it, making decisions, being decisive, even if it doesn't always turn out well. You talked about really being focused on caregivers, and if you take care of caregivers, they'll take good care of clients. You talked about managing and operating your business by the numbers and being really focused on KPI throughout your tenure. You talked about the opportunity to really leverage your coach both in creating the vision of what you want to achieve, creating the plan, and then implementing it, and really being able to measure against the entire system, and all while having a playbook to execute on. So. Great information today, Jaime. The last question for you is, what misconception do new owners sometimes have about business performance coaching?
The misconception is that we're the quote unquote dude from corporate, right? A lot of people look at us as like we're just the arm from corporate. We're the heavy. We're the individual here to micromanage, when it couldn't be farther from the truth. And in fact, when I start my calls with people, I say, here's the deal. I am from corporate. I am hired from Right at Home Corporate. I'm paid by Right at Home Corporate. But in this instance, in our relationship, I work for you. I want to help you accomplish the goals that you want to. I have very minimal guardrails. I have the franchise agreement and I have your FDD that really align me to what do you want to accomplish as long as it's within this, right? And then it's my job to help you create that plan and move forward. You've got to hit your minimums. You've got to, do anything you would do within a franchise agreement or any other franchise. But there's a lot of different ways to do it, and a lot of people have taken many paths to get there. It's whatever path you want, I'm going to help you accomplish. So I'm not the suit, I'm not the Bob, I'm not the dude from corporate. I'm here to help you create that vision and help you execute.
Yeah. Well, you live it every day. You and your teammates, the business performance coaches are absolute rock stars, and the investment that you make in franchisees to ultimately live out our mission and to deliver the impact that we all want to be a part of, and we want to support franchisees in doing that in our own unique way. But thank you, Jaime. I really appreciate it. I hope all the attendees enjoyed it, and just appreciate the time and all you do every day to support our system.
It's a pleasure, brother. It's a
All
pleasure.
right. All right. Thanks, everyone.